for you. In fact, coming up next up.
All right, and now I'd like to bring to you hashtag to beat HIV with Dr. Allison Matthews. Dr. Matthews, how are you doing today? Hey.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you for coming on the show today and telling us about your movement that is making waves on the internet. Tell us, what is
well, thanks for calling it a movement.
I think it's a great movement.
Yeah.
I'm trying to get my Charlotte people on it, and they're delaying. But I'm telling them, I say, you better get on this bandwagon because this is it. If we're not going to speak about HIV any other time, this is the time to speak about it.
Yeah, most definitely. The 2-Bit HIV Project is housed at UNC Chapel Hill, and we're in the Institute for Global Health and Infectious Disease, and we're trying to do community engagement better around HIV cure research. So we're just trying to raise awareness about the type of research that's happening at UNC. We're actually a global hub, one of the few places in the world that's doing this type of research. And, I was tasked with trying to think of creative ways to get people involved in talking about HIV cure and what it means to them and how we can really think creatively and work together to develop solutions for, getting people involved and thinking about how we can move toward a world without HIV.
Indeed. How did such a movement begin?
Well, a big part of it is the fact that I was hired as a researcher for this project. The project is a larger project funded by the NIH that is trying to look at some of the social and ethical issues related to, doing clinical trials and thinking about how to develop technology and medication that is useful for the community. I think part of the reason why we decided to do the 2-Beat HIV project was because in the past, if you think about, there's been kind of a lot of abuses of research in communities, and especially in Black and Brown communities. You think about the Tuskegee Project, Tuskegee syphilis study, and even, abuses against Black and Latino women in North Carolina. They just had a lawsuit that was settled around, giving women hysterectomies. And so these types of that history, people don't forget that. We know that there's kind of this need to build trust to address a lot of the issues in the community. And so that's why we're doing this community engagement. One is to kind of address those issues and build trust and give information, but also to give community members the opportunity to, have an ownership over this type of research.
Indeed. That's good stuff. Thank you, Dr. Matthews. Has HIV personally impacted you?
I have an older cousin. I actually never met him, but I have an older cousin who died of HIV, but I've been involved in HIV since I was in college. I did a lot of research and just met a lot of people who were positive. And I think the biggest impact for me is knowing that this is a symptom of a larger problem that I see. We don't have, as people of color, we need to have better access to health care and education and employment and safety, and HIV ends up being one of those things that we get at risk for because we don't have the resources to protect ourselves. So that's how it impacts me. That's why I care about it.
Right. In your opinion, based on your research and your involvement, what do you think needs to be done in order to reduce the impact that HIV has on the Black and Brown community?
Well, I think that that's a part of what this project is about, the 2-Beat HIV project, is really trying to get community members. I'd rather not like go into communities and say, hey, you know, I think this is what's wrong with the community and this is what needs to be done. Rather than doing that, you know, which is traditionally how research is done, this project is about getting community members to come up with the solutions that are relevant for our communities, right? So I just had this conversation yesterday with this man, Mr. Anthony, who is a construction worker in Durham, and he just started coming to some meetings and just started getting interested in learning more about HIV and research. And he was just saying, like, he's an ex-con, and he was saying, like, this, you know, people don't know that there's a pill now called PrEP that you can use as a way to prevent yourself from getting HIV and a way to, you know, and prevent people who are positive from passing it on to partners. So, like, this type of information needs to be out there and popular, you know, like just as popular as, you know, the Viagra pill. You know, people should know that you can take this medication. But beyond that, like, there's a lot of, I guess, work that needs to be done in our communities to get people to even talk about this stuff, because we know that. Yeah, go on.
I was just going to say, I think it's like a double-edged sword, because it's like people want to take the stigma away from it so that people aren't scared to death as soon as they hear you're HIV positive, that's a death sentence, or this is what you're going to be dealing with. But then it's like you also want to make it scary enough that people don't create new cases too, you know. And it seems like whenever people pass away, like I can recall someone that I know passed away from the virus. I honestly don't know what he had because he never said.
Right.
But it was like when he passed away, oh, he died of natural causes, or like he died of cancer. Like that spin was put on it too, instead of like putting real meaning to his life and shedding light on what exactly was going on with his health. You know, and that's how I've personally been impacted, and it's a shame. I remember him as the person, not the guy who died of AIDS.
Right.
You know, and it's just like, if that was the case, then I think his life would have had more meaning, because people beyond me would remember him, you know, as being like, this is how this should be handled. Like, it should just be more light on it instead of trying to hide it or sweep it under the rug, so to speak.
Well, I love what you just said about, you know, knowing and remembering the person for who they are rather than the person with the disease. Like, people who are HIV positive, it's not really a death sentence per se anymore. People are still dying from the disease, but now with medication, you know, you can get your viral load down to undetectable and not pass it on and live just as long as anybody who didn't have the disease. But so that's part of the reason why we actually think that we can get a cure, you know, is moving the medication is so advanced now that we're actually making headway. But, yeah, focusing on, rather than the stigma around it, focusing on who people are, our family members, our brothers, our sisters, our cousins, and that's why we should care and do something about it.
I noticed, too, like, there's a lot of politics involved, because I'm sure, you know, involved in how these drugs are being made as far as the pharmaceutical industry is concerned.
Yeah.
You know, talking about, I watched this documentary called Fire in the Blood recently, and they touched a lot about the patents that different countries hold. And India started making headway with reducing, you know, new cases, because they started packaging their own drugs. And so the fact that depending on where you live depends on whether or not you live or die, or what kind of treatment you get, and your experience is going to be completely different, was very disturbing to me, especially because there's like a concentrated amount of new cases in different countries compared to here, just based on people's ignorance and not understanding how the disease works and how it actually spreads. And that was very disheartening. And I know there's a lot of things to touch on. There's like a lot of spins that you could put on it, but as far as the politics go, have you been following what it is that our government is doing to help reduce new cases? Are they pretty much on the side of pharmaceutical companies where, enterprising-wise, they're going to get their money?
Right. Well, I think that it's kind of both and. So on the one hand, there's been a huge push by the White House to increase funding in the United States to try to move toward I guess raising awareness about prevention and increasing access to the medication and that kind of thing. And on the other hand, and also funding, increasing funding for the research, so the clinical trials and that kind of thing. On the other hand, there's, and I want to be careful about this, but there's pharmaceutical companies that they provide the medication, and oftentimes you can get it for free, depending on your income and that kind of thing, and going through the Ryan White Project and if you have 500% of the federal poverty guidelines, you can actually access medication for free through the pharmaceutical companies or by participating in clinical trials. But the issue is that medication is very expensive if you're not able to find those programs. And, depending on what part of the world you're in, that medication is not even available yet. So like sub-Saharan Africa has nearly it's over 20 million cases of HIV, but there's no PrEP available. Like that pill that you can take to prevent from getting HIV is not available yet in that part of the world. But it is available here. Actually, the U.S. is the only country that is FDA approved to provide PrEP. So, there's this kind of balance that we have to really take into, consideration. I don't know. Have y'all did you hear about the guy who was like an entrepreneur and he owned a patent to one of the pills that's being used to treat HIV, and he raised the price of the pill?
No. Well, okay. So when I was watching the same documentary earlier, Finding the Blood, they talked about the patent on AZT. I forget which drug company originally owned it, but basically, he took a 20-year patent and doubled its time because he waited 20 years for it to technically be used to treat HIV. So, and then he said you have to use it AZT with this drug in order for it to treat HIV. So it basically he spanned it. But no, is that not the same situation or?
Yeah, that's
situation?
that's what I was talking about. But so what happened was they were using the drug for another disease, and it's been out for a long time. And then through research, clinical trials, we discovered that this drug is actually also useful for treating HIV. And so he found that out, and he was like, oh well, since it has a new use, I can raise the price of the drug because you're using the drug for a different purpose, which actually
than it was
happens
originally patented
all
for.
the time. Yeah, it's not anything new. Just like you use Botox for your skin, and then now they use it for migraines. It's the same thing. They change, they market it differently, and then they raise the price. But what I think is important is that community members are the ones who found out about it. They got mad about it, and they raised their voice, and they said, no, this is not okay. And it got into the news, and that's how we know about it, right? So, people keep asking me when they ask about the project, well, I don't feel like I can do anything about HIV or finding a cure. I'm not a scientist, and I don't know anything about HIV. But raising our voice to say something about these issues, these politics, and it does have an impact, and it does shape how pharmaceutical companies approach, providing medication. It shapes how universities do the research that they do to protect participants, and so that's why it's important for us to actually start having these conversations to talk about how do we do this better.
Psychologically speaking, I'm really like trying to put myself in somebody's shoes. Like if I found out I was HIV positive, like what is the next step? Because what really bothers me out of all of these cases are the ones who are really cuckoo crazy and then go on to consciously infect other people. So is there is that part of the treatment as well as far as like resources go? Is it like, are they getting psychological treatment? Because I know, well, from what I know of, there's like a registry, or I guess like they legally have to say like, okay, this is the date I was declared. So anybody after that, they have to have that information disclosed to them. But as far as psychological treatment goes, is that part of the treatment process as well?
Yeah. So let me just start off with even the process of getting tested. You go in, you find a clinic or wherever, you get tested, and then they're immediately supposed to give you counseling right then and there. And then the Durham County Health Department or wherever gets a log of whoever tests positive. So they have a list. It is not public for very many, safety reasons. People, it's still stigmatized.
Retaliation.
Yeah. So it's not public, but we have a list, and they keep track of it, and then they ask the person to list their sexual partners within the last year or within the lifetime. So they can contact them and let them know that this person tested positive. Let's get you in to get tested just to make sure that you're not positive. And there are laws on the books that say that people are not allowed to purposefully, infect someone else. But I guess the issue that we have to tread lightly on is that, it can be confusing and I guess potentially harmful to criminalize people for being sick. And so we have to also think about, like, if we can get them into medication as soon as possible after they're exposed to HIV and they find out that they're positive, we actually are starting to think that that is the best time to be able to treat people to get their viral load down and to even eventually be able to cure them of the disease, because the virus replicates really, really fast once you get infected. If you can get them as early as possible, then we can stop the virus from replicating in the body and passing it on to other people.
Okay.
So that's where we're going with cure research, and it's pretty cool. But yeah, we have to be very mindful of all of those issues.
Where does North Carolina stand on as far as like whether does that vary from state to state, or is that a federal thing as far as infecting people?
Yeah, it varies from state to state. North Carolina does have a law that says that if you purposefully infect someone, so I think that there's also the issue of intent, right? So like just like, so somebody could get infected or you could accidentally infect someone, but that you also have to prove intent for that. So there's that fine line there. But yeah, they do have that law on the books in North Carolina.
Yeah, I'm thinking of like the dentist that made the headlines recently, the one who like poked holes in condoms and definitely was asked straight up, like, are you infected? And he said no. That guy. Like, I'm thinking about cuckoo crazies like that, not like, oh, like, I just forgot to tell you kind of thing, though.
Well, yeah, and I think part of the reason why people may do that purposefully is maybe because they're mad or they think that they're going to, somebody infected them, and so they want to retaliate in some way. And not saying that it's justified, but
no, not at all.
If we could get information out saying, this is not a death sentence and there's actually a way for you to be treated and live a life that is full and long, then maybe we could stop people from doing that too.
Nice.
All right, there. How can our listeners get involved with movements that matter, such as #ToBeatHIV?
Well, there's we're actually hosting a few events throughout the year that are coming up, and I've partnered with a lot of community-based organizations and event spaces and different types of businesses in the area in North Carolina. So the first event that's happening is for World AIDS Day is December 1st. We're meeting in partnership with the Partnership for Healthy Durham and the Durham County Health Department. And we're going to be doing free HIV testing with Triangle Empowerment Center, and then it's also in partnership with the LGBTQ Center of Durham, which is brand spanking new. They just opened like 2 months ago. So we're meeting December 1st, 4:30, CCB Plaza, and then walking over to the LGBTQ Center to kind of just hang out, fellowship, meet each other, and talk about and memorialize people who have passed from the disease. But then on December 14th, partnering with Angel Dozier, who is the founder of a program called ESET Excelsior, and we're doing this event called The Experiment with Beats and Music. And so we're having Charlotte Ammons and Median, who are two hip-hop artists, and also Nina Ukwu, who's a singer. They're going to be performing at BU Cafe on December 14th at 6:30. And so part of that event is that we're trying to get community members to come attend, do a workshop where you can learn about HIV cure research, and then kind of create music, like doing lyrics and beats and creating a song that reflects on what HIV cure means to them and how we can address it in the community.
Yo, that's dope. Tag me to a flyer, Allison. I need to hear more about that.
Okay, yeah, I will. I'm trying not to over talk y'all. But there's a bunch of events that are going on. I can definitely share all of the events that are happening.
All right. Well, one last question. Unless we have a question.
I have a question.
Oh, go ahead, Charles.
It's a real important question. I was just wanted to know whether or not you watch reality TV.
Yes, I do. Why?
Oh, no, I was just asking.
Yeah.
Where's the soundboard at? Where is the soundboard?
All those people out
I think my favorite show is a guilty pleasure. It's the Real Housewives of Atlanta. So
Talk about it.
Yeah.
Good question.
But I think I have to read a lot, and I love to just zone out.
Tell people how to follow your movement on social media, please.
Okay, yeah. So we're on Twitter, 2BeatHIV. The number 2 beat HIV. Twitter. On Facebook, it's facebook.com/2BeatHIV. We're also on Snapchat, 2BeatHIV. And you can also, if you have any more questions or concerns, you can go to our website, which is 2beathiv.org. And on that website, we're actually asking people to submit their videos and photos reflecting on what HIV cure means to them. The deadline is December 1st. And winners can have the opportunity to win a night stay at the Durham Hotel or a $75 gift certificate to Pizzeria Toro.
Oh, wow. Cool. That's dope.
Yeah, thank you so much, y'all, for having me on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks
for answering our questions.
Yeah.
All right.
I'll talk to you
Thank
soon.
you. Appreciate it.
Okay. Thanks. Bye.
Bye-bye. And now we're going to play Stepping Stone by today's featured artist, Brittany Crush.
Spirit never fails, it arises. Trials and tribulations seem so timeless. Appreciation of life, they say, is priceless. But situations we see right through our eyelids. What I did and what you do. Love me or leave me alone, my borrowed time is used. Tried to be humble as my first home. Everybody just cutthroat is for the throne. Force me on my Mel Gibson, man, listen. If you can't stand the heat, get out the damn kitchen. New pup flare, old dog trips. No ideas is original, they say hope. As I tread my waters carefully, releasing therapy. Always looking for clarity and what's prepared for me. God bless the child who can hold his own. Who wanna take it there with me like a Fallujah zone. Sound like a tuba blown. With social measurements, I'm moving strong. My footprints in the sand, man, I'm not alone. You might need a clone. Matter of fact, I can watch the throne. And both of y'all be my stepping stone. One.